You know how every personal finance guru tells you to pay off your debt as fast as possible, never waste money on convenience, and track every single dollar like your life depends on it? That if you just follow the right money rules, wealth will magically appear? Yeah. I broke almost all of those rules, and it made me richer. Here's the thing nobody talks about. Some of the habits that look irresponsible from the outside, the ones your financially responsible friend would side-eye you for, are the exact habits that quietly compound wealth in the background. Not because they're reckless, but because they remove the friction that keeps most people financially stuck. And there's actually research to back this up. A study published in the Journal of Financial Planning found that rigid adherence to traditional money rules was one of the top predictors of financial burnout. The kind that leads to people abandoning their money plans entirely, meaning the good habits were actually setting people up to fail. So today I'm going to walk you through 10 money habits that look objectively bad on paper, but are making me wealthier every single year. Some of these will feel obvious once I explain them. Others are going to make you uncomfortable. Let's get into it. Let's start with the one that's going to trigger some people. I don't pay extra on my mortgage. I don't round up. I don't throw bonuses at the principal. And every time I say this, someone looks at me like I just confessed to a crime, because the conventional wisdom is clear. Debt is bad. Pay it off as fast as you can. Sleep better at night. But here's what nobody asks. At what cost? My mortgage is locked in at a low interest rate. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 has averaged roughly 10% annual returns over the long term. Every extra dollar I throw at the mortgage saves me whatever my rate is. Let's say around 3 to 4%. Every dollar I invest instead has historically earned me 10%. That's a 6 to 7% difference on hundreds of thousands of dollars over decades. And that gap compounds. It doesn't just add up, it multiplies. We're talking potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in difference by the time you reach retirement. Now, here's the part most finance content won't say out loud. People don't pay off their mortgage early because the math says to. They do it because it feels good. And I respect that. Peace of mind is real, but peace of mind has a price tag, and most people have no idea what they're actually paying for that feeling. Financial researchers call this the difference between emotional math and actual math. Emotional math says zero debt equals safety. Actual math says your cheap debt is one of the best financial tools you have, use it. So no, I'm not paying off my mortgage early, and that bad habit is quietly putting tens of thousands of extra dollars into my investment accounts every year. 2. Spending more on convenience. This one sounds like something a lazy person tells themselves to justify being lazy. I pay someone to clean my house. I get grocery delivery. I pay for the car wash instead of doing it myself. Bad with money, right? Not if you think about it for more than 5 seconds. Here's the question nobody asks. What is your time actually worth? Not what you earn per hour at your job, but what is the real, tangible value of a free hour in your life? If paying someone $40 to clean your apartment gives you back 3 hours, and you use those 3 hours to rest so you perform better at work, build a side income, spend time with your family, or just protect your mental health from burning out, that $40 didn't cost you money. It made you money. Or it preserved the energy that earns you money. Research on time and subjective well-being from Harvard and the University of British Columbia found that people who spent money to buy time reported significantly higher life satisfaction than people who didn't, even when controlling for income. Meaning this isn't a rich person hack. This works at almost every income level. The trap is thinking that frugality means doing everything yourself. It doesn't. Frugality without a time calculation is just performative suffering. You're not saving money. You're spending your most valuable, non-renewable resource, time and energy, to save a few dollars that don't move the needle. Wealthy people figured this out early. They protect their time first, then optimize cost second. So yeah, I spend too much on convenience, and it's one of the best financial decisions I make every month. 3. Ignoring small expenses. If you've spent any time in the personal finance world, you've heard this one. The latte factor. The idea that your $5 daily coffee is the reason you're not wealthy. That if you just cut out these tiny daily indulgences and invested the money instead, you'd retire a millionaire. And yeah, the math technically works if you ignore every other variable in human life. Here's the problem. Obsessing over $5 purchases gives your brain the illusion of financial control, while the actual wealth-killing decisions go completely unexamined. Your car lease, that's $200 more per month than it needs to be. Your insurance, you haven't shopped in 4 years. The $15,000 salary raise you never negotiated because it felt uncomfortable. Those are the decisions that move your net worth by thousands, not the coffee. Research on attention and decision-making shows that cognitive bandwidth is finite. Every minute you spend agonizing over whether to buy a latte is a minute you're not spending on the financial. Moves that actually matter. It's like rearranging deck chairs on a ship while ignoring the engine. And here's the psychological damage nobody talks about. When you train yourself to feel guilty about every small purchase, you create a scarcity mindset that bleeds into everything. You feel broke even when you're not. You start resenting the process of managing money, and eventually you snap, and the backlash spending is way worse than whatever you were trying to save. So I don't track my coffee purchases. I don't feel guilty about a $12 lunch. Instead, I put that mental energy into the 3 or 4 big financial decisions each year that actually determine whether my net worth goes up or down. And that careless approach has built more wealth than any spreadsheet tracking my lattes ever did. 4. Buying before I need it. Conventional wisdom says don't spend money until you absolutely have to. Wait until you need the thing. Don't buy courses until you're ready to take them. Don't invest in tools until you've outgrown what you have. Be responsible. And it sounds logical, except it creates a pattern where you're always reacting to problems instead of positioning yourself ahead of them. Here's what I do instead. I invest in courses, coaching, tools, and equipment before I feel ready. Before I've earned it. Before the logical voice in my head says it's time. Why? Because spending money on growth creates something psychologists call commitment escalation, but in a positive direction. When you've paid for the course, you take it seriously. When you've bought the equipment, you use it. When you've invested in the coach, you show up differently. Money on the line changes behavior. It creates accountability that willpower alone can't, and there's a hidden cost to waiting that nobody calculates, the cost of delay. The income you didn't earn because you waited 6 months to learn the skill. The opportunity that passed because you didn't have the right tool. The growth that didn't happen because you were being responsible with your money instead of strategic. The reframe is simple. Spending money on your own growth isn't an expense. It's an investment with a return. And the earlier you make that investment, the longer the return has to compound. So yeah, I buy things before I need them. And more often than not, that early bet on myself pays off far more than the money I spent. 5. Not budgeting down to the last cent. Let me be clear. I'm not anti-budgeting. I know where my money goes, but I do not sit down and allocate every single dollar to a category. I don't track whether I spent $47 or $52 on groceries last Tuesday. And according to most personal finance advice, that makes me financially irresponsible. But here's what actually happens when people try to budget every dollar. They do it for about 3 weeks. They feel like accountants running their own lives. The guilt of going $8 over in the dining out category eats at them. And by February, the spreadsheet is abandoned and they're back to spending blind. Except now, they also feel like failures. Research on financial behavior from the University of Cambridge found that overly rigid budgeting systems have high abandonment rates precisely because they demand too many daily decisions. And each of those micro decisions drains the same willpower you need for everything else in your life. Here's what I do instead. I automate my savings and investments first. That money leaves my account before I ever see it. Then I set guardrails on a few big categories: housing, transport, food, and everything else. I spend it without guilt, because the important money is already handled. It's already saved. It's already invested. What's left is mine to live on. This is what financial psychologists call a systems-based approach versus a willpower-based approach. Systems work long-term because they don't depend on you making perfect decisions every day. They depend on you making one good decision, setting up the system, and then letting it run. So no, I don't budget to the last cent. I budget the big stuff, automate the important stuff, and live my life with what's left. And that sloppy system has been more effective than any detailed budget I ever abandoned. 6. Keeping a lot of cash on hand. Every investing influencer will tell you the same thing. Cash is trash. Inflation is eating your savings. Invest every dollar you can. Put your money to work. And they're not wrong about the math. Cash does lose purchasing power to inflation over time, but what nobody talks about is the strategic value of liquidity. I keep a large cash reserve, way more than the standard 3 to 6 months emergency fund advice. And here's why. First, a fat cash reserve means I never have to panic sell investments during a market downturn. When the market drops 30% and everyone is scrambling, I'm not forced to sell at the worst possible time to cover an unexpected expense. I've watched people wipe out years of investment gains because they had to liquidate during a dip to pay for a car repair or a medical bill. That's not just unlucky, that's a structural failure in their financial plan. Second, cash is optionality. It's the ability to move fast when an opportunity shows up, a business opportunity, and the investment at a discount, a real estate deal that needs quick closing. The people who can write a check immediately aren't wealthier because they're smarter. They're wealthier because they had the cash to act when others couldn't. And third, and this is the one nobody talks about, cash reserves change how you make decisions. When you know you're financially safe for 6 to 12 months, regardless of what happens, you negotiate differently. You walk away from bad deals. You don't take jobs or clients out of desperation. You make decisions from a position of strength instead of fear. Research on financial stress and decision-making shows that financial insecurity literally impairs cognitive function. Your brain under money stress makes worse decisions across the board. Not just about money, about everything. Cash reserves remove that stress. And the quality of your decisions improves dramatically. So yes, some of my money is losing to inflation in a savings account. And I'm completely fine with that. Because the strategic leverage that cash gives me is worth far more than the 3% I'd earn investing it. 7. Lending money I expect to never get back. Every financial advisor, every money blog, every smart money person will tell you the same thing. Never lend money to friends or family. It ruins relationships. You'll never get it back. Just say no. And I get why they say that. But I do the opposite. If someone in my life needs a couple $100 and I can afford it, I give it to them. And I mentally write it off the moment it leaves my hands. Here's why this is actually a wealth-building strategy, not a foolish one. When you lend money with the expectation of getting it back, you become a debt collector in your own family. You track it. You resent it. You bring it up at dinner. You damage the relationship over an amount of money that, honestly, probably wouldn't change your life either way. But when you treat it as a gift, when you give freely without strings, something different happens. You protect the relationship. You build trust. You become someone people can count on. And over a lifetime, that reputation compounds in ways that are impossible to put on a spreadsheet. Because here's the uncomfortable truth about wealth. Your network is your net worth. Not in the cheesy LinkedIn way, in the literal, practical way. The opportunities that changed my financial life didn't come from job boards. They came from people who trusted me, respected me, and thought of me when something good came along. And some of those people were people I'd helped when they needed it. Now, I'm not saying be a doormat. I'm not saying let people take advantage of you. There's a difference between generously helping someone in a tough spot and enabling someone who constantly asks for money without trying to improve their situation. Use judgment. But the habit of treating small loans as gifts, of protecting relationships over protecting a few $100s, has paid me back in trust, opportunities, and peace of mind many times over. The money I lost was some of the best money I ever spent. 8. Paying full price for quality. This one sounds like the opposite of being smart with money. Why would you pay full price when you could find it cheaper? Wait for a sale. Use a coupon. Buy the budget version. And for a lot of purchases, yeah, the cheap version is fine. But for the things you use every single day, the things that directly affect your quality of life, your productivity, and your health, buying cheap is the most expensive thing you can do. There's a concept economists call the cost per use principle. A $200 pair of boots that lasts 8 years costs you $25 per year. A $40 pair that falls apart every 12 months costs you $40 per year. The expensive boots aren't just better. They're literally cheaper over time. You just have to be willing to pay the higher upfront cost. This applies across the board. Your mattress, you spend a third of your life on it. Your work setup, you spend 8 hours a day using it. Your shoes, your coat, your cookware, the things you interact with every single day, repeatedly, for years. Research on consumer behavior shows that people systematically underestimate the long-term cost of cheap, frequently replaced items and overestimate the cost of expensive, durable ones. Your brain anchors on the price tag, not the total cost of ownership. The habit isn't spending more, the habit is spending once. Buy fewer things, but buy the right things. Take care of them. And watch your total spending drop over time because you're not in a constant cycle of replacing cheap stuff that breaks. I pay full price for quality, and over the long run, it saved me thousands. 9. Saying no to social events. Here's the one that makes you look antisocial. Turning down dinners, skipping the group trip, not going to the birthday bar crawl, it looks like you're cheap. It looks like you don't care about your friends. And in a culture that equates social spending with social connection, saying no feels like you're opting out of life. But let's be honest about what most social spending actually is. It's not networking. It's not building deep relationships. It's obligation with a price tag, the dinner you didn't want to attend, the trip you couldn't comfortably afford, the drinks you said yes to out of guilt, not genuine desire. None of that is connection. That's people-pleasing funded by your credit card. Research on social spending and satisfaction found something interesting. People who were selective about which social events they attended reported higher quality relationships than people who said yes to everything. Not more relationships, better ones. Because when you actually want to be there, you show up differently. You're present. You're engaged. You're not sitting there calculating how much this dinner is costing you or stressed about the bill. And here's the financial reality most people won't admit. Social spending is one of the hardest categories to control because it comes wrapped in emotional pressure. Nobody guilt trips you into buying a new TV. But people absolutely guilt trip you into the $80 brunch, the $300 concert, the $2,000 group vacation, and saying no triggers social anxiety that makes it easier to just say yes and deal with the financial consequences later. The habit is this. Be intentional about where you show up. Say yes to the things that genuinely matter to you and add to your life. Say no, without guilt, to everything else. Your real friends will understand. And the people who judge you for it were probably draining more than your wallet anyway. Selective presence is more powerful than constant availability, and protecting your money is also protecting your energy for the relationships that actually matter. 10. Living below my means, even when income grows. Here's the final one, and it's the one that ties everything together. When most people get a raise, a promotion, a new income stream, the lifestyle upgrades immediately. New apartment, new car, new wardrobe, new restaurants. The income went up 30%, and so did the spending. Which means the actual wealth-building gap, the difference between what comes in and what goes out, stayed exactly the same. This is what behavioral economists call lifestyle creep. And it's the single biggest reason why high-income earners still live paycheck to paycheck. It's not that they don't make enough money, it's that their spending always rises to meet their income. Every raise gets absorbed before it ever has a chance to compound. I do the opposite. When my income goes up, my lifestyle goes up a little. Maybe 5 or 10%. But the rest of that increase goes straight into investments and savings. The gap between what I earn and what I spend gets wider every single year. And that widening gap is the entire game. Because here's what most people don't understand about building real wealth. It's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. Someone earning $200,000 who spends $195,000 has less wealth building power than someone earning $80,000 who spends $50,000. The second person has $30,000 a year compounding in their favor. The first person has $5,000. And over 20 years, that difference is life-changing. Every other habit on this list is a tactic. This one is the philosophy underneath all of them. Not paying off the mortgage early, that's maximizing the gap. Ignoring small expenses, that's protecting your mental energy so you focus on the gap. Saying no to social events, that's preventing the gap from shrinking. It all comes back to this. The people who look rich usually aren't. The people who are rich usually don't look like it. And the reason is simple. They fell in love with the gap, not the upgrade. So there they are, 10 money habits that look wrong on paper, but are quietly building wealth in the background. Not paying off cheap debt, spending on convenience, ignoring small expenses, investing in yourself early. ditching the rigid budget, keeping cash on hand, giving generously, paying for quality, being selective with your time, and above all, protecting the gap between what you earn and what you spend. None of these habits are exciting. None of them will get you likes on social media, and none of them feel like the smart money advice you've been taught your whole life. But that's exactly why they work, because the habits that build wealth don't look impressive. They look boring. And boring is where your money grows. If this changed how you think about your own money habits, hit that like button. And if you want more content that goes against the conventional financial wisdom, subscribe to My Wealth Logic, because there's a lot more where this came from. I'll see you in the next one.